start the recording here. All right. Good morning. Welcome to the joint ETCOI and ITMM meeting today. My name is Michelle. I am the ETCOI program chair. For people new to ACT-IAC, I invite you to check the ACT-IAC website. You'll find the emerging tech COI with blockchain, AI, DevOps, quantum, IoT, and DIG. And let me pass it to Varsha to talk about the ITMM.
Thank you, Marshall. Hi, everyone. I'm Varsha Maheshwari. I am the industry chair for the IT management and modernization community of interest. Real quick about ITMM, this COI is all about helping government agencies navigate IT management challenges and accelerate modernization. So we focus on everything from strategy and policy to governance, CPIC, FITARA, program and project management, operations. So basically, if it touches IT management and modernization, we try to be in it. Today, we're really excited to be teaming up with the Emerging Tech COI for this session. And to kick things off, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Szykman. Simone is the co-founder and president of Cambio Digital Transformations. He brings nearly 30 years of experience in technology and business leadership. He has led major digital transformation efforts. He has helped organizations rethink how they deliver their missions, and also has held senior leadership roles at Maximus and Attain. And prior to that, he was deep in government tech leadership as a CIO at Commerce and NIST, and also had senior roles at the White House Office of Science and Technology and at DHS. If you're interested in touching base with Simone, please find him on LinkedIn. But I'll stop there. And Simone, I'll hand it over to you.
Oh, it's just
Thank you.
Sorry, Simon, one final thing. For people on the call, we are recording this call, so we ask that people stay off camera and mute their microphone. Thank you, everyone. Simon?
Thank you, Varsha. I would have taken less time to introduce myself, so thank you for those words. I'm very excited to be here today and looking forward to facilitating a robust discussion with our panelists. Our panelists are quite esteemed, and you can find their full bios online. But I'll allow each of them to take just a couple of minutes to introduce themselves. And Paul, why don't we start with you?
Thank you, Simone. Yeah, I'm Paul Parazzoli. I'm a program development exec at IBM Quantum. My role there is to create collaborations between IBM and our external partners to really drive forward our mission of advancing applications in quantum computing and also towards developing a quantum-centric supercomputing, which we see as the future of computing. Before coming to IBM, I was a research scientist at Sandia National Labs, focusing on quantum technology, applications of quantum technology like computing, sensing, timing, etc. And then I served for a year as on temporary assignment to the Department of Energy, Basic Energy Sciences, where I was managing their strategic investments in quantum information sciences. And yeah.
Excellent, thank you. And Micaela?
Thank you, Simon. My name is Micaela Giuhat. I am with Microsoft. My role is emerging tech policy in the USGA team. I've been with Microsoft about 5 years now. I have a long career in telecom, cloud environments, standards, you name it. I joined Microsoft to start working on 5G, 6G policies, and slowly and surely I have migrated to more emerging technologies, including quantum, PQC, AI, quantum, and HPC. So a lot of work that needs to be done to go forward on this very, very promising technology. Thank you.
Terrific, thank you. And Suresh, how about you?
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Suresh Nair. I represent ENA Solutions. We're based off Fairfax, Virginia, in Tyson's Corner. We are a small business. We've been in business since 2011. Our core capabilities are artificial intelligence and advanced data analytics. We do work with quite a few federal agencies like DHS, USDA, Foreign Agriculture Service, and US Air Force. We also work with a lot of academias to bring in research, and one of them is quantum. We have been recently awarded by National Science Foundation the first award on experimental learning on quantum machine learning, QML. This is a 3 year program. It's a part of excellent program, and looking forward to the panel. Thank you.
All right, thanks. And Mike, let's round things out with you.
Thanks so much. My name is Mike Piech. I lead business development at Rigetti Computing. Rigetti is a maker of quantum computers of the superconducting modality. We've been in business about 12 years now. I've been at Rigetti myself for about a year in this role, which encompasses marketing, partnerships, and various go-to-market strategies. My own background began in electrical engineering, computer science. In early years, spent some time doing research on video compression algorithms and other sort of flavors of signal processing before moving into more product management roles with various enterprise software companies such as Oracle and most recently Red Hat. Happy to be here.
All right, thank you. We'll kick things off in just a brief moment. Quick comment just for the audience. We do have a list of questions that we'll be discussing with the panel. If I can do time management well, I will try to leave a little bit of time for some questions at the end. And just to facilitate managing those questions rather than having people raise their hands, not everybody is always visible. So please drop your questions in the chat, and I will try to monitor what is popping in there when we get closer towards the end of the session. So with that, let's go ahead and kick things off. As folks may have seen in the description of the session, it's been said for a long time that quantum computing is just a few years away, and that window in the past had always kind of edged along and moved along with time. But now we're seeing real advances in quantum computing covered in the news from the research community, from startups, from big names in the technology industry. So what are some of the successes or applications that are enabled by some of the more recent progress that we're seeing just in the past few months or years? Suresh, any thoughts? Oh, you're on mute, Suresh.
All right, sorry about that. I'll talk from a quantum machine learning perspective because we are a data science company. So, we're not a hardware, but on the software side, QML, there's a lot of good advancements within the QML quantum machine area. For example, we are working with Cal State to use quantum machine learning to simulate quantum 2D materials. How do you use QML to simulate DFT, which is a density factor for molecules? So some of them, it's in a very early stage. There's a lot of errors, noise, and stuff like that, but it's a lot of potential there. And also, there are a lot of good breakthroughs in drug discoveries using quantum machine learning, where you can simulate some of the tests rather than using animals and things like that. You could simulate the same thing for drug discoveries and the side effects and stuff. So there are a few European companies which is already using quantum machine learning for drug discoveries, but also there are a few breakthroughs in cybersecurity world where when quantum becomes real, right? When I'm saying 1,000 qubits, when our existing algorithms will be on attack, QML can be used for some of the cyber threats and cyber analysis. So I'll pause there.
Great, thanks. And any other thoughts from any of the other panelists to add?
Sure, I'll add a little bit. Obviously, we have been working on quantum for a long time, and now, as I mentioned before, with the intersection of these technologies, We have proven that AI-driven scientific discovery and quantum computing can provide a lot of help in many ways, whether it's workflow automation, precise simulations, quantum-inspired optimizations, just to name a few. In addition to that, we have done a lot of work in showing the synergistic potential in catalysis research, and we have demonstrated actually the result of putting these technologies together, AI, HPC, and quantum, in analyzing actually these catalytic reactions, and by leveraging qubits to enhance quantum simulation and conducting large-scale density functional theory calculations. I know it's a mouthful. Researchers actually can now model chemical interactions with much greater precisions. Just so this goes hand in hand with what has been just said about helping in drug discovery, drug development, and many other applications.
I'd like to add something as well. So I mentioned earlier, IBM has a mission towards quantum-centric supercomputing, and I'll explain a little bit about what that is. So that's essentially we're looking at, well, the way we understand quantum computers are going to work in the future is not as standalone systems, but they're going to be integrated with existing high-performance computing systems, right? So like what we have at Oak Ridge or NERSC. And they'll act as a co-processor to these kinds of systems, right? And we're seeing some work developing along those lines. And recently, IBM partnering with a couple external partners, RIKEN in Japan and University of Colorado, demonstrated a hybrid workflow. So this is sort of like it's shifting into this paradigm of computing where we're sort of orchestrating across, quantum computing resources and classical computing resources. And these resources could either be clustered together, like co-located, which reduces latency, or they can be separated over, through the cloud, and still function to accelerate computing. And then I'll also add one other thing. This is separate, but we're also seeing, and I think this is important, we're also seeing that there's a lot of interest growing at the sort of the student level, and also in industry, but it's kind of nice to see students, coming to, coming to our workshops and the summer schools that we have, and showing real interest in quantum computing. And I think when I started in quantum computing, most people didn't know that those two words would go together. And so it's inspiring to see a younger generation really getting excited and looking at ways that they can contribute to the field. And I think that's valuable. I think it's very valuable because I feel like a lot of innovation comes from, the younger people getting excited and getting familiar with this new type of computing, this novel technology, and contributing to it in novel ways.
Excellent, thank you. And before we move on to the next question, Mike, it looked like you had come off mute to add something as well.
Yeah, these are all great comments, so I can't help but plus one to everything that's been said here. And I wanted to pick up on both of your points, Paul. So as a computer system vendor, we are seeing a significant share of the interest and the RFPs that we've responded to in the last, let's say, 6 months, having a significant HPC integration component to them. And I'd concur that many of the use cases and really the wider, let's say, people contexts in which we see quantum computing sort of initiatives and opportunities happening is in a context of enhancing problems that are already being approached with high performance computing. And then on the point of the next generation, so I'm here at the second day of the APS, American Physical Society annual March meeting here in Anaheim, California, and there are 16,000 physicists within a few hundred yards of me here. The opening night on the floor last night was just phenomenal, and just the sheer percentage of students, grad students, even some undergraduates, passionate about just the excitement that's palpable in this emerging industry now is really exciting to just experience. And I guess the one thing I want to add to everything that's being said here regarding the sort of coming of quantum advantage is that it really is a journey, and it's a continuous curve. It will have little spikes of excitement from a news standpoint as breakthroughs in different areas are made. But it's one thing I would encourage the audience here as they're thinking about quantum computing and how in their various organizations it might make sense to engage with it. Don't think of it as hey, the industry will reach a certain threshold of capability, of applicability, and then it's time to jump in. It's the progress is amazing, and it's palpable now. And so I'd encourage everybody to at least get their feet in the water, start to understand what's going on, start to really get engaged, get folks in your teams learning about quantum computing, playing around, kicking the tires, experimenting with it, because by the time it's quote unquote here, it'll be too late. You will want to have built up some expertise and tracked and learned the different ways it's being used, and be ready for that. So that'd be my additional comment here. So thanks.
Great, thank you, Mike. I think folks are generally aware that a lot of the early quantum research was funded by the US government, and that research has grown over time to something around $1 billion in that neighborhood of federally funded research in the Federal National Quantum Initiative last year. But we're increasingly seeing venture capital funding startups to do quantum work. We have Mike here from a company that's has its roots there. Also, larger companies like Microsoft and IBM, and then smaller companies like the one that Suresh is from. So there's kind of an ecosystem emerging. It's not all driven by federal research investment. So how do you see the role of government industry evolving and co-evolving as the market really emerges from all of the historical investment that's happened in the past? Maybe Micaela, you can take a shot at that.
Sure. Let me start off by saying actually the government funding for quantum started in 18 with NQI, sorry, and it's probably around 4 billion now. Having said that, from different sources available to all of us, China has invested about 15 billion, which is more than all other countries' investments in quantum together. So it's very important to understand the national security aspect that quantum brings from an economical perspective, but also from a security perspective. And I'm sure we'll touch upon all these things. In addition to what you mentioned, and in addition to the government funding in US, we have been working on quantum. Companies like IBM, Microsoft, and many others have been investing in quantum now, at least from a Microsoft perspective, for decades, 2 decades actually. So the investment, it's much higher. Together with the government, probably gets to levels that are quite high. Now, having said all that, I think we are at the verge of actually making much faster progress in quantum, whether different modalities, different things for different reasons being put together with different systems, but the combination of all this can create a great advantage. And because of that, the government and industry relation needs to be extremely well developed, and it is. We actually encourage these relations to go forward. And what we have seen, for instance, from the DARPA program for the US 2QC program, which is the underexplored systems for quantum computing, as well as the benchmarking initiatives. These are extremely well done programs, very rigorous in their research and in the award-based, milestone-based awards. We have seen a lot of funding as well for hubs, as well as test beds and different regional initiatives. All those are extremely important to move forward. But I would say that the most important piece now from a government perspective relies on having a much more focused strategy on quantum. And with that, I'll let other people comment, but I think that's the most important thing that we need to see from a government relations perspective.
All right, thank you.
I would second that, what Micaela said. I think we do need much stronger coordination in the government. And I think we also need to see much tighter connection with industry, between government and industry. And I think what's important here, I mean, I came from the government, so I greatly appreciate the early funding that the government did in quantum computing. And in fact, without that funding, we probably wouldn't be seeing this level of private interest in it. But I think we need to also consider, now the industry is changing, the technology has evolved quite a bit, and the role of government the role of government overall remains the same, to support the technology, but sort of the way it does it needs to adapt a little bit. And what I mean by that is it needs to connect with the industry to understand what the critical needs are there. Make sure that the government's not duplicating efforts that industry is already doing. And then also, we are witnessing, we're beginning to witness, a shift, right, in transitioning from like purely research focused activities in quantum computing to more commercial applications. And I don't think that the government's really focusing as much as it needs to be on the application side of things. Hardware companies like IBM and Rigetti, we're advancing the hardware quite rapidly and pretty quickly. But what we need is, in the coming future, when we have, more powerful machines, when we have error-corrected machines, which is on the timeline for many of the quantum computing companies have put forward a forward-looking roadmap, and so we can see that error-corrected quantum computing it's around the corner, right? But what we need to make sure that the industry and that the nation is prepared to receive that, because it can take years to develop the skills, the mastery to use quantum computers. It can take years to take those skills and transition them to applications. But also what's important is the development of algorithms, because as much as we advance quantum computing hardware, a lot of the efficiency derives from more efficient algorithms. So if we can invest significantly more in algorithmic research, we can realize on a nearer term, we'd be able to realize the potential of quantum computers. And so I guess that's, what I'm trying to say is I feel like the government needs to address the applications gap, and to do that, they need to work with the quantum computing companies, but also working with the America's industrial base, right? The Boeings and Raytheons, the JP Morgans and whatnot, the people that have the real applications.
So I'll let other folks add something. I'll just weigh in with a little bit of a parallel. It's interesting in the domain of networking and IT research and development. There was kind of a similar bifurcation of categorization of research investments in the supercomputing world. Some supercomputing research funding was put in to really develop new architectures and new capabilities for higher end computers, but they had a separate category of funding that was tracked and led to programs in the infrastructure and applications arena, specifically recognizing that building applications for supercomputers was in itself a unique area of research. Mike, were you going to weigh in with something as well?
Yeah, I think from a standpoint of why should the government continue to spend significant amounts of money investing in developing this industry. I think Micaela mentioned the security and defense, and I would definitely plus 1,000 that. There's a, that comparison with China's investment is one of those stunning figures you see in keynotes at quantum conferences, and it definitely gives one pause. Like, hey, we as the rest of the world need to up our game here. And I think dovetailing with that is despite what I said earlier about, hey, quantum computing is happening now, there are real breakthroughs, there's real value being created now. There is still a lot of science that needs to happen, still a lot of basic research, which involves a lot of trial and error, a lot of experimentation, which the capital markets and sort of the pure sort of capitalistic machinery it doesn't have the patience to support, right? This is a great example of where government complements the markets and can stimulate and carry and sustain the kind of pure science, basic science research that needs to happen to get a technology to a level where it is crossing into that realm of commercial viability, of commercial value, of where the appetite of the market will just sort of take over, and then government can sort of recede from the scene. But we're a ways away from that. We're years away from that. We need the government to help both the physics of getting enough qubits with long enough coherence times, with good enough error rates, with fast enough gate speeds to carry out the basic computation. And then, as Paul was describing on the algorithm side, I mean, as a computer scientist and somebody who's spent a lot of years programming, I can say that as weird as it was to go from traditional programming to training models and the AI way of looking at the world and the way of programming, to then AI enhanced programming, where you stop writing code from scratch, but you're all about engineering prompts and having an AI generate code, and then you modify it. It will be at least as weird, significantly weirder, to get the world to think quantumly and to actually be able to write quantum algorithms, even as small pieces of an overall solution that involves a lot of classical compute. That's all going to need stimulation from outside the market machinery for a few more years.
All right, great. Any last thoughts before we move on to the next question? All right. I did have a question on some of the challenges, and I think we've already started to touch on those here and there. There was a question in the chat about error rates, and Mike, you were just talking about that, as well as the race for more qubits. And so I think I'll skip over that, and I'll just let anybody else who wants to add in on some of the challenges do so in the context of our continued discussion. But separate from the technical side, there's also the policy world, and I think we've touched on this a little bit in the context of public-private partnerships and the role of government, and kind of the need to sustain investment and also to focus on algorithms. But are there any additional thoughts and maybe recommendations for people who are in the federal government listening to or watching this later, from a federal policy perspective? Any other things that need to be addressed to help accelerate the progress that's being made in this arena and towards an emerging market? Whether it's industrial policy, R&D policy, security policy. There are some security issues related to quantum computing that we haven't quite touched on yet. But Micaela, any thoughts on sort of the policy needs and implications?
Yes, thank you very much. And as you mentioned, we have talked quite a bit about sort of the quantum industry development and the role of focused strategy for quantum, as well as public-private partnership. There are other aspects, two more aspects that I would like to raise or to talk about. One, it's sort of the global competitiveness or cooperation, if you wish, and supply chain resilience. I think it's extremely important. There are actually several aspects here that maybe they're a little bit intertwined. There is a need for international cooperation. Nobody can, as much as we want to say we'll do it alone. It's a very complex world, and the workforce and the specialists and the physicists, are not a plenty. So we need a very thorough, global cooperation, as well as making sure or ensuring that U.S. leadership in quantum hardware and software is maintained by really having that supply chain under control, which is, again, a very complex problem. I would also say that, from a policy perspective, we need to strike a balance between fostering this international collaboration and protecting sensitive quantum technologies from, not like-minded countries, if you wish. So export controls and IP protection is important, but again, with a very fine line and in balancing the needs of US in terms of cooperation as well as competition. The third thing that I would like to mention is that there is a need for responsible development and ethical considerations. And what we've seen with what happened with AI sort of took us by surprise, and there is a lot of work in being done now. But it's very important that our policies should guide the responsible development or deployment of quantum computing, particularly, in areas like AI, cryptography, and national security. And that's also, it goes hand in hand with perhaps all emerging technologies that we need to put the railways in place now as we are evolving the technology. And we've talked quite a bit about workforce development. I'll let other people chime in as well.
Simon, I'd like to add on what Miguel just mentioned regarding the previous question and this. I'm just going to combine both. So if you look at from a government and industry partnership, right? It's a classical example, solution to a small business. NSF, National Science Foundation, has funded $1 million to educate on quantum machine learning for all undergrads. So right now we do have, we're working with A&M, Alabama Rice, it's an HBCU. And we have 6 students in our lab virtually learning quantum machine learning on real applications, right? Using QGrid, Qiskit, IBM, tools like that. So I think the government has to, I would put this into 3 categories. The first comes quantum literacy, right? I'm pretty sure there's a lot of audience who are government folks. Literacy is the main thing. Without literacy, when the technology comes, you don't have a workforce development, right? So the government has to focus and spend on literacy right now, right? And then, this is important because when quantum becomes real, you have post-quantum cryptography, from your network engineers to your hardware, to your router guys. Everyone has to know what are the implications of it. That's literacy. The second aspect is, if you look at today, apart from the real quantum computers, which is evolving and it'll be in a few years, we do have applications using quantum sensors, right? Quantum sensors only need a single qubit, right, or more, right? Not like 36,000 qubits, like computers. So quantum sensors, you can definitely, we're collaborating with some of the universities to use single photon detections to analyze cancer cells and cancer research on cancer, right? So we are seeking funding for those. So I think the government has to focus also on the quantum sensors applications, which NIH, I see a few, but not many, right? So I think it's a combination of that and quantum literacy and quantum sensors is the first thing which can happen right away. And then when the quantum computer becomes real, then you have all other applications when using the bigger computation power.
All right, thanks. I want to go back a little bit because Suresh, you mentioned quantum cryptography. Micaela, you were talking about export controls. And so I think it's worth mentioning that it's not just about protecting the country's intellectual property for the purpose of economic leadership, but the fact that there are national security implications related to quantum computing, these technologies. And so, again, having briefly talked about cryptography and post-quantum cryptography, but there may be folks in our audience here who are not familiar with those things. There are other national security implications related to sensors, the fact that quantum can potentially enable or likely enable GPS-free position and navigation. So does anybody want to offer some thoughts on kind of the big picture of how quantum has implications for national security and why maintaining leadership in the global stage is important for that reason as well?
I can give it a try, and I'm sure other will add to that. Obviously, we talked about the economical implications of having quantum leadership, but as you mentioned, security is very important. There is a strategy that it's called harvest now, decrypt later, which means that adversarial countries are harvesting a lot of information that, given a quantum computer, may be able to decrypt, which means that a lot of the national security means that national security can be compromised. So I'm trying to simplify things so that that we, for sake of time. Given that it's extremely important, as we mentioned, that we are the leaders in quantum computing and be able to be post-quantum ready. And that it's part of what PQC, the whole PQC strategy is dealing with. Having said that, PQC, which is post-quantum cryptography, it's something that many companies have been working on, obviously, the industry. But from a government perspective, there is a timeline that has been put in place now for a couple of years that goes to 35, maybe has been a little bit brought down to 33. And while that's extremely, important to follow those timelines, it's also very important to understand the budgets associated with actually migrating to a post-quantum safe IT infrastructure, if you wish. And there was a first attempt of creating a budget for that for government, which brought back something like 7 billion in terms of what the Office of Management and Budget has, provided as a total sum. I think that's perhaps, going to be on the low side. I think the migration will require a much higher investment. And obviously that goes not only for government, but any critical infrastructure players, from banking to networking to computing to cloud to, you name it. That's something that we all have to start planning for right now.
So, if I could add on what Mika just
sure.
mentioned on the quantum sensors, we have published a few white papers on quantum sensors. One is for health, which I just mentioned. The other one is, gyroscopes, right? Using quantum gyroscopes, you can measure the fluctuation of gravities and stuff like that, which some of the agencies like DHS can use for exploration of if there's tunnels underneath the ground. And this is I'm not saying it's out there, but I'm just saying there are larger gyroscopes and stuff like that, which is already a graviometer, I mean to say. Not gyroscope, graviometer. There are larger graviometers out there, but if the government fundings, like the industry government partnerships on the fundings, you can make it much smaller. and you can use that on in a drone or something like that, where you can fly over and find some of the sensing capabilities and stuff. So that applies to national security. So there are a lot of use cases right now. If there's government funding, we could at least start the research.
All right. Well, thank you. Suresh, I think it was you who mentioned workforce challenges. What are people's thoughts on obviously quantum literacy is one of those things that's broad and helps raise the water level for all. But what else is needed to help grow a pipeline of skilled people as the market emerges? We want people to be quantum literate, but we're also going to need skilled professionals and enough of them to support the investment in the technology, the deployment, and the applications. So, Paul, do you have any thoughts on where things are going with workforce and what some of the needs or challenges are in that arena?
Yeah, of course, like you said, workforce development is critically important if we're going to be ready to use this technology. IBM is actually, for scale of magnitude, IBM has invested over $100 million just in workforce and education. And so we recognize that that's a crucial problem. And so some of the, in talking with our partners, our external partners, a lot of what we see is that right now there tends to be a gap between the people who are really good at quantum computing, that understand how to program quantum computers and develop the algorithms and applications, and the people that have the applications themselves, right? And so within the industry, there isn't a strong quantum computing expertise within industry, and so making the connection between you're talking about how to get professionals into brought up to speed in quantum. I think that creating programs that bring together subject matter experts from within industry with subject matter experts from within the quantum industry together can really help catalyze the integration of quantum computing within our economy. And then earlier in the workforce development, of course, we're looking at going back to undergraduate degrees, developing undergraduate programs in quantum computing or quantum information sciences, which some universities are beginning to look at and starting to develop curriculum around that. But I think we need to see a lot more support. And I think what we also need to see is a lot more coordination around that, because a lot of universities are coming and saying, well, what does a curriculum look like? And a lot of them are, redeveloping wheels. And so if we can put together some sort of a program to guide universities and how to create these degree programs and where they need to be putting their focus on in educating the next generation of workforce, I think that would help accelerate the workforce development by quite a bit.
All right, thanks. And any other thoughts on workforce?
Yeah, I think that we all touched a little bit upon that, but I think there is, as all of us mentioned, there is a need for everything, like, quantum specialists to physicists, to chemists, to computer engineers, to AI engineers, to HPC engineers, to go through the whole stack, if you wish, and put that together. There is, we sometimes focus, when we talk about quantum, we focus on hardware, but there is a whole ecosystem that goes with the hardware. So, and in many cases, from what I have seen, the software sort of lags the hardware. And it's, we talked a little bit about error correction and things like that. There is a tremendous need for everything, STEM related to contribute to our quantum leadership. So all programs are needed, and obviously budgets are needed to create the programs. And companies like IBM, us, and many others are trying to put in place these programs, trying to make it easier for people to have access to these quantum computers and start experimenting with them have access to interfaces that allow chemists not to spend time on actually framing a problem, but dig in right, immediately and start getting some results. So there are ways of enhancing the programs, but there is a need for a very large, for a volley of specialties, not only quantum.
So, Simon, if I could add to it, the way I would look at that is you cannot produce, thousands of physicists, quantum physicists with a PhD. That's not going to happen, right? There's only few going around, right? So how do we? Because I consider this as a national security issue, right? If you don't have enough workforce in the next 5-6 years to support the quantum revolution or next generation of quantum technology, then we are in trouble. So we are having a lot of initiatives starting at 8 to 12 grades level. So we have a few quantum training platform which actually breaks down into micro credentials like photonics, lasers, quantum sensors. And we are working with some of the states like South Carolina governor schools to bring in this, simplified quantum principles and technology to 8 to 12 graders, right? But once we are also thinking of bringing it at the elementary level also, so that you get a next 10-15 years you will have a fighting chance. We have already hit the graduate level, right? We are training them about QML and quantum computing. So I think if the government can spend at the workforce development level, simplifying the quantum technology, as Miguel was talking about, it's just not quantum hardware. Even if you can talk about marketing, an MBA person who's going to get into this field of quantum and trying to explain what quantum technology and sell it, they also have to have a knowledge about what quantum means, right? So I'll pause there. So.
All right, thanks. I wanted to come back to a couple of things. I have a couple more questions that I can ask if there's time available, but I also wanted to make sure I take a little bit of time to address any of the audience's questions. So again, if anybody does have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I did get one that was just sent to me directly, so other folks may not see it, but it relates to a couple of things that have already been said. Paul, you talked about kind of this idea that quantum computers may be a sidecar to supercomputers, and Mike, you echoed that, but I know that Rigetti also has developed a platform for creating kind of cloud-based access to quantum computing capabilities. And the question that I got falls into this big picture of what exactly is the future role for quantum computers, and how are they going to play? What's their place? And so this other question is there a future where quantum computers would be available to everyone like PCs, or would it remain kind of an as a service from quantum cloud providers? So any thoughts on kind of where the computing technology is going to exist in the future? And obviously there may be more than one answer to that.
Now I'll jump in. It does feel like the most likely scenario is that there will not be quantum computers on every desk. Now that kind of worldview is based on the modalities of quantum computing that are seeing the most research today, like ours, superconducting. You need a big dilution refrigerator to cool the processing unit down to the temperature that it needs to actually do quantum computation. That is not likely to get small enough and cheap enough to be, on every desktop in the foreseeable future. Now, there are certainly really amazing research programs to find other ways to do quantum computing, and one of those may very well come out with a breakthrough that does make it possible to have quantum computing in a small device that's portable or sits on desktops, et cetera. For the moment, as from the what are these things used for standpoint, again, in that spirit of acting as a sort of co-processor alongside classical computation, it's highly likely that in most scenarios, a cloud-based sort of invocation of that co-processing is adequate. The kinds of use cases like materials and drug discovery and that sort of chemistry simulation category of uses, and optimization, so variants of the traveling salesman problem, all those sort of truck routing for package delivery, or airline routing, or energy grid optimization, or even financial portfolio optimization. That kind of work is carried out by larger companies with or organizations that have the resources to have big quantum computers in a data center alongside their classical counterparts, with high enough bandwidth connection between them to reduce the latency and have the lightning fast computation that needs to happen for those sorts of use cases. Those aren't the kinds of things that you do on your phone or even in an office on a desktop. They don't really need to be physically happening in physical proximity. So I think, based on what we see and know now for the foreseeable future, yeah, a lot of, outside the larger organizations that can afford the big quantum computers, a lot of the democratized access is going to be via the cloud.
Great, thanks. Any other thoughts? Okay. So here's a good question that I wouldn't have thought to ask, but I'm happy somebody sent it to me, because not everybody in the audience is sort of deep into the quantum world. And the question was, what are some of the publicly available resources out there that you folks use, that other people could use to stay informed on the latest research, the latest industry trends, and latest on the quantum market that's emerging? What are some resources out there that people can access to get informed and stay informed?
There are so many, I would say, use ChatGPT to get you the resources, to be honest. All companies have many blogs, many articles, start from perhaps a good resource. It's QECD, and that's actually, they're also publishing a report on workforce development every month. So that's something that would be of interest. But, as I said, there are many resources, starting with basic books on whoever wants to learn something about quantum. Personally, I'm an engineer by profession, but quantum is sort of, every day there is something new that I thought I understood and I realized I haven't, and I start over. So it's challenging, it's wonderful, and then there are many resources to choose from. So please go on Microsoft quantum page, and I'm sure Paul will say the same thing for IBM, and Mike the same. So
yeah, I'll put in a cheap plug for IBM's blog. You can go to IBM, just Google IBM Quantum, and you'll see we put a ton of resources out there. The vast majority of our educational resources are open. You have to create an account, I think, but it's open to anybody. But also, I'll just say, like, YouTube is a great resource. There's a ton of entertaining and let's say just well-described explanations about quantum computing and updates, and I think you can get a pretty good education just on YouTube alone.
Great, thanks. And for anybody who missed the passing reference, QEDC is the Quantum Economic Development Consortium, which is one of the larger public-private partnerships out there that's helping to accelerate progress towards an economy around quantum. So definitely a good resource. And Nancy, Delanoche just dropped a link to them in the chat for anybody who's interested. So thank you for that.
I'll just jump
Yeah.
in. I mean, we of course have docs.rigetti.com, and we have an elaborate sort of set of materials. But I'll tip my hat to our larger friends. You know, both IBM and Microsoft have amazing resources online, and I myself have benefited from ramping up using those. There are also industry newsletters, so things like the Quantum Insider and Quantum Zeitgeist and so on. So and I'm sure the Chat GPT answer would take our audience here to a list of those, and some of those are very good. And then one other kind of category of resources I'll throw out there is that there are a number of university-based online programs. So again, as I myself was jumping into the quantum domain here, I went through MIT XPro's Introduction to Quantum Computing. So 4-week courses. So, you know, over the course of 4 months, it's a pretty well done introduction to quantum computation. So anybody who's really looking to you know, learn more about this, I mean, that was a great way to jump in for somebody with, you know, some technical aptitude and background, but zero, you know, no assumption, no prerequisite of quantum physics per se, and it takes you all the way up to, you know, a reasonable understanding of how it all works. So, and of course there are others out there, but MIT XPro was a really good one, I can say from experience.
Szykman, if I can add,
Yeah, please.
we're not as big as IBM and Microsoft and Rigetti, but we're a small business. So if you want to pitch our qlightx.com, it's on our website. It's eight micro-credential quantum principles, which is taught at 8 to 12 grade level. It's a simple video-based, game-based training platform. It's already online, and if anyone is interested, we can. And thanks for IBM. We started our quantum practice through IBM Qiskit, so appreciate it. And we are also looking at Microsoft's API. So thank you, appreciate it.
And
All right.
just want to add one more.
Yeah,
Actually,
please.
it's a really good resource. There's a weekly newsletter that Travis Humble, the director of the Quantum Science Center at Oak Ridge National Lab, he started this newsletter like, I don't know, a decade ago, but it's become really, I think it's very popular now. A lot of people subscribe to it. But if you do Google for QCI-external, you should be able to find it, and it comes out every Sunday, and it has a list of all the upcoming conferences, all the upcoming RFPs, RFIs, and all of the latest like headlines on quantum computing. So it's a good way to keep tabs on the latest development.
Last
Right.
one.
Well, thank you. So I'm glad that question got asked, because I found the answer informative as well. So thanks for everybody's reply there. I wanted to invite each of you to offer any closing thoughts, but since we're close to the end of time, in case people need to drop off at 1, I wanted to, before I do that, just say thank you to the panel. Thanks to ACT-IAC for setting up this joint event across 2 different COIs. But especially thanks to all of our panelists for taking the time to be here today and share their experience, thoughts, and perspectives. Very much appreciated. So with that, I will approach the closeout and just turn things over to you for any final thoughts. And I'll just go in the order on my screen here, Paul.
Well, first, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to share, and thank the whole AIC team. And I mean, I think if there's one takeaway, I would say, you know, keep an eye on quantum computing. I think we need to increase our investments in it nationally. But yeah, it's a very exciting field, and it's actually growing quite rapidly, I would say.
All right, great. Micaela?
Yes, thank you as well for having me, and for the panel. I think it was a very good panel and good discussion. From you know, takeaway, I would say that want to re-emphasize, if I may, the government investment remains really critical for a long-term quantum breakthrough. And while industry will drive the scalability, commercial aspects and real-world impact, this strong combination will be, the most important thing that can help U.S. to maintain quantum leadership.
All right, thanks. And Suresh.
Hey, Szykman, thank you so much for moderating this. Well done, appreciate it. It's a pleasure to share the stage with Paul, Miguel, and Mike. Thank you. Really learned from you guys also today, so appreciate that. And thank you to IAC for giving us an opportunity, a small business like us, to be a part of this. And all I say is, from a quantum, my background is a mechanical engineering background. I work for aerospace industries, got into data. I'm not a quantum physicist. I learned quantum principles and basics in mechanical engineering, right? So I look at quantum from an engineering aspects of it, not from a physics aspects of it. So I look from supply chain to integration to circuits and all that stuff. And how do I build all this to, bring that to market, right? It's tough, but it's how do I don't go into nitty-gritty details of physics about it. How do I take all this? I take Rigetti or IBM or Microsoft. How do I build a solution for industry, right? So all I learned was, reading white papers, YouTube, as the panelists was mentioning, and you get better every day. Don't get worried about all the quantum entanglement, quantum superpositioning, the physics behind it.
All right. Well, thank you. And Mike, let's finish up with you.
Yeah, I'll echo the thanks to yourself, Simon, to the great panel here. I myself also learned a lot from speaking with all of you here today, so that was fantastic. And thanks to our audience for joining in. As far as takeaways, I would say I'd certainly echo that this is an exciting time to be in quantum computing. So if you're wondering, gee, does it make sense to jump in? The answer is a loud yes. Like, get in, learn about it, just educate yourself. And as a complement to that exhortation, I also, as an engineer, I'll share Suresh's experience as a looking at it and thinking about it from, okay, what do I do with it? How is it applicable? Very much an engineering mindset of, okay, we, to the extent that we understand the science, let's take it and apply it and help the world. As you're learning about it, there are things that are hard to get your head around: entanglement, superposition, etc. Put in a little work. It's not easy. Some of this stuff really is hard, and you don't necessarily, to Suresh's point, need to understand all the intricacies of it. But put a little work into it. No pain, no gain, right? Suffer a little bit, and as you start to get a glimmer of understanding, it is so rewarding. You'll have those epiphanies, and it will be exciting, and it will drive you to go learn even more. So I would love to leave everybody with that. Hopefully inspiring exhortation to jump in and go learn it, because it's super fun.
All right. Great. Well, we are a few minutes over, so thank you for those of you in the audience who are able to stick with us to the end. And it was great talking to you. Thanks for everybody who joined us today, and we will see you next time. Take care.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.